Sean, Davante Adams traded to the New York Jets. Jets get Davante Adams, and they pay his salary. Raiders get a conditional third-round pick. Davante, if he's on the Jets roster for the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, it becomes a second-round pick. Sean, what was where were you, and what was your first reaction when you saw that Davante Adams was on the Jets?
I was getting my 3-year-old daughter dressed to go to preschool, and I saw the trade, and I thought, what a pathetic move by a pathetic franchise. What a sad state of affairs this is by the worst-run organization in professional sports, that they waited until they were 2-4, and they now need to go 9-2 effectively to make the playoffs after not making the playoffs for 13 consecutive years. And Woody Johnson is incompetent, and I hate everything. That's how I felt.
You know when you're like, if you go out on a weeknight and you end up having more drinks than you thought, and you're kind of drunk, and it's like a Wednesday, and you're like, it's 11 p.m. and you're like, what's one more shot? I'm already having fun. What's one more shot of whiskey? I feel like that's what the Jets did. Sean, you got to be all in on this. I really think so. This is great. Who cares? Bring in Aaron Rodgers' best friend. Why not?
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, sure.
Take one more shot. You've already had 5.
Definitely. Can we get T.O. out of retirement too? Who else can we bring onto this team? Why not? If we're just taking chances here. No, this is a joke. Maybe it'll be fine and they'll win 9 or 10 games, but this is a pathetic last-ditch effort from an organization that has not known what they are doing for 15 consecutive years, and I feel horrible about it.
I think it's tough because I part of me actually thinks that I want to say it is a good idea, but I think it makes sense. I can follow the logic because there's an element of it that it's Breaking Bad, like no half measures, Walter. You know what I mean? Like you might as well go all in on this Aaron Rodgers thing instead of pulling the plug. But also Breaking Bad is very much about going down the wrong path and being like way too deep in the whole time. So I don't know if that's the best metaphor. But I mean, I think Adams is good, but I agree that it's crazy. Just Woody Johnson doing this 5 weeks in, is that the part that bothers you the most, or is it just? Does it bother you that you've ceded control to Aaron Rodgers, or does it bother you that it took this long to actually make these decisions?
It's a really good question. I mean, I want to hear what you guys think about the move in general and kind of like if it actually could turn their fortunes. But certainly wide receiver connection with the quarterback has been an issue with the team. We just watched a game yesterday where Mike Williams ran the wrong route and then fell down on the ground for the second consecutive game and had a ball intercepted to close out the fourth quarter. That's not good. If you put Davante Adams in that position, maybe they win that game. Maybe they win the game the week before. If he's there 3 weeks ago, maybe they win that Broncos game, and all of a sudden you're a team that's sitting at 4-2 or maybe even 5-1, and things feel a lot different. But the run defense has been mediocre to bad. The running game has been mediocre to bad. Tyron Smith looks like he's 85 years old. Morgan Moses has already missed 2 weeks due to injury, and he's 34 years old and not getting any younger. And this is an administration on its last legs that's already fired its first head coach this season. Let's just game it out for a second. Let's say, for the sake of conversation, they do turn it around and they do go 9-2. And the Jets finish with an 11-6 record, and they finish second in the AFC East, and they get a wild card spot. And they play in the wild card round, and they lose to a superior team. Then what happens? Like, Aaron Rodgers is 41, and Davante Adams is 32, and Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall need contract extensions, and the Jets have no quarterback or coach of the future? I honestly don't know what the move here is. If this was week 2 or week 3, I would have said, sure, fire Salah, bring in Davante Adams, try to shore up, find another run-stuffing DT, and then talk to me. But on the brink of a lost season, it just feels like a rich guy being like, fuck it, I'll try one more time, and then I'm not going to have to try for another 5 years because we're going to draft a QB and be in a developmental phase like we have been for the last 20 years. So I feel like this is really quite sad. And I'm excited to watch Davante Adams catch touchdowns, but otherwise it feels like a mistake.
Yeah. DK, do you think Davante Adams is still like an elite receiver?
I think maybe elite might be a little strong, but he's still very good. Yes. And especially with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, where, they can isolate him. And we've talked about this the whole season. The offense runs it's like in fits and starts when Aaron Rodgers is playing, because he gets to the line, he changes everything. He lets the clock run down to 1 second every single time. It's a very slow offense, but he's doing all the manipulation at the line of scrimmage. And it really helps to have receivers that are on the same page with him. This is why for like a decade, we've been talking about, he doesn't like playing with rookie receivers. He doesn't like playing with receivers that he doesn't know. He brings Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard wherever he goes because you have to be on the same page. It's very like, it has to be a perfectly finely tuned machine to work. And
Craig compared it to a car that only Davante Adams knows how to fix.
Yeah, or he's like a chef in a kitchen who like brings his guys when he starts a new restaurant because he runs a tight ship.
Yeah.
You know? Mike Williams, not only did he screw up that interception, there was also a critical third down where he was supposed to run like a quick slant. He didn't get his head around quick enough. The ball hit him literally in the nuts, and Aaron Rodgers was pissed at him. So I don't think this is not the issue for the Jets. It wasn't like they need another wide receiver. That's the difference. Because I mean they fired their defensive head coordinator even though the defense wasn't the problem. But part of me, it's funny that Woody Johnson in his interview used a Talladega Nights quote that was like,
"Oh my God,
don't think like
you're not a
thinker, you're a driver."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if you should be promoting the idea of that you're not thinking. He should have used also that quote's not famous from that movie.
Thinking's overrated. Thinking is overrated was exactly
overrated.
what Woody Johnson said.
When that's not even the quote from a movie, it's you're not a thinker, you're a driver. Also, that's not a famous quote from the movie. He really should have said, if you're not first, you're last. I feel like that is what he was going for. And that's the quote everybody knows.
And all they've been is last. They're fifth in AFC East division titles. There's only 4 teams in the AFC East.
Did you guys know that the Jets have 8 consecutive losing seasons? Like, it's often cited that they have gone 13 years without making the playoffs, but they are nearing the all-time record they're going to be among the top 10 all-time losingest consecutive franchises if they lose again this year. I think they'd be tied for 7th overall with 9 straight seasons without a winning season. That's fucking insane in the age of parity. How are they doing? This should be studied, how incompetent they are.
Well, that's why they're doing this. They're desperate to not be in that like talking point. Literally, they just don't want that talking point to happen.
I really do think that is so much of it. I think that so much of it. It's. I think we forget with athletes and with billionaires and all these people that like just as much as winning, nobody wants to be publicly humiliated. And I really do think the ambassador thing is a huge part of what just happened. But the last 7 days, Robert Saleh, Eric Mangini called this before the game even happened. That like if Robert Saleh lost that London game in front of I live in DC. My fiance is in this international relations field.
Flex.
Ambassador flex. But ambassadors do need to be called ambassador. They need to be announced into a room when they enter. They need invitations and stuff. Like when Woody Johnson goes back to England and sits in that suite in London and his team sucks. And his brother, Fredo Corleone, just ruined the team when he left. And he comes back and he's like, let me get this straight. The White Sox are the worst team in the history of baseball, and they were in the playoffs like 3 years ago, and we haven't made the playoffs in 13 years, and we're in New York. I do think that it has been a 7-day tilt where between firing Saleh, which I don't know what that was supposed to accomplish, and I swear to God they win the game if Saleh kept the coach. I know that's an impossible thing to say, but I don't know. Sean, what do you are you net? Are you upset right now? Because I feel like on one hand, the Jets are pathetic. And on the other hand, you do have Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, the Mets and the Yankees. I know you're not a Yankees fan, but Mets are but they're both in the championship series in baseball. Mm-hmm. The Knicks are about to have the most exciting season in my entire life. And then the Liberty in the WNBA finals. So are you happy as a person or are you sad?
I mean, I've built this abandoned tower of pain that's part of my podcast persona that is like, woe is me, the Jets, right? So I did this to myself, and I have let Bill Simmons continue to add floors to this tower that I've built and make it feel worse and worse every year. So there's a performative aspect to this that I can't deny. But when you watch a game like last night's game, how could you be happy? Like, it's not just that they lose in tremendously embarrassing fashion in close games. I think they've now lost 3 consecutive games by a total margin of 7 points. That's embarrassing. They're a sad franchise. So set aside the Mets thing, because whatever's happening with the Mets is magical. It almost never happens in sports for teams that I root for, and I'm very excited about it. I'm not utterly depressed. I have an incredible life. If you knew how fun my life is relative to where it was 20 years ago, it's going great. Football, though, is something I genuinely love and watch every Sunday religiously and have since I was 7 years old. And so to not be able to have personal happiness inside something that I genuinely enjoy is just tremendously frustrating. And to know that, you pointed out that Woody Johnson was the ambassador to England during Trump's presidency. this wasn't like 9 weeks ago. This was 4 years ago.
there's an election coming up right now.
Like
yeah.
Christopher Johnson he did screw everything up when he was running the team for those years, but like the guy has had 4 full years to get this back on track, and it has not happened. So I'm kind of done with that excuse. Bill Belichick said it on the Manning cast last night. Ready, fire, aim has always been the way that he has managed the team. We see since he bought the team from Leon Hess that he's just not well suited to this work. The NFL has been riddled with incompetent owners over that period of time, but he really is in the bottom quartile, if not in the bottom 5, in terms of lack of success. So now we see like we're at the end of this era where they tried to reset with Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, and Zach Wilson. It didn't work. They're doing this last-ditch thing. It's not going to work. In all likelihood, Joe Douglas is going to get fired with like a 35-67 career record as the general manager of the Jets, which is insane that he has gotten this long of a run and still hasn't built an offensive line. And so as I look at like another rebuild in my mid-40s, it's all starting to hit me, guys.
That's why we have this one beautiful season with Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and Garrett Wilson to win the Super Bowl.
And it's like 2 33-year-old tackles, a 31-year-old receiver, to the oldest active player in the NFL. I remember, Sean, you came on the show a few years ago. I believe it was either before or after the Jets had drafted Zach Wilson. It was right after the awful 2020 season. And you asked DK, what should I do? You told a story about you were like screaming at the Jets, or maybe Zach Wilson mid-2021 season. And your wife was like, do you not find this like unbecoming that you're like 39 and you're just screaming at the television because this 21-year-old kid's bad at football? And you were like, DK, what should I do with myself? What do I do? And DK, you were like, oh, nihilism. Just believe in nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, DK, are you still that? Should he still believe it in nothing?
Yeah. Big time. It's a discipline, really. You have to train yourself and hone that nihilistic discipline.
I got to tell you, it feels phenomenal.
Yeah. When you don't set an expectation, you
don't
get
have
sad
any
when something
goals,
happens.
You can't
And I got to tell you, I feel phenomenal.
Sean, don't lie, though. Next Sunday against the Steelers, you are going to be excited to watch Aaron Rodgers throw a football to Davante Adams.
Yeah, I'm going to sit right next to you in the
Yeah,
Spotify
right.
screening room watching the game. I think it's hard to get to that place, and frankly, as 3 guys who have all experienced a Super Bowl title in the last 20 years, like I'm just not interested in your opinion. Like I really don't care. Like you guys don't know what you're talking about. You cannot understand where I'm coming from. The Jets have not won a title since 1969, so let that sink in.
Before the moon landing, allegedly, for Aaron Rodgers.